Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. So I'm Kathy, and with me I've got Holly and Caroline. And between us, we're all lead VAs. Happy to share our experience. We're all running pretty similar businesses, and we collaborate on a lot of things. So this webinar came about because I was feeling frustrated by seeing lots of associates on Facebook groups saying that they weren't getting jobs or they didn't understand how being an associate worked. And I was getting some pretty ropey applications in. But nobody tells you how this works, right, when you start. So I suggested to Caroline and Holly that given that we're the ones that receive the applications, it might be helpful if we could give somebody a steer on what lead VAs are looking for when you apply, and how the whole thing works, right? So I'm Kathy, I run Personally Virtual. There's a team of, I think it's around 30 of us now, been going 10 years. So that's me. Holly runs the Visionary VA Circle. So she kindly agreed to do this sort of back-end admin, as well as her own agency, of course. But essentially, we're all super happy to share our experiences and, answer any questions that you may have. So we've had a few topics already submitted, which we will work through. If you have questions, please bung them in the chat. We'll get to them. And we're going to be, we're happy to be open and honest. We're all pretty transparent. Obviously, not naming names, and we can't go into individual scenarios or we'll be here all night. And obviously, this is just three of us. Different VAs will run their businesses really differently, and that's kind of fine. That's how they run it. So you may well have had different experiences than working with us lot, and we're not here to say one way is right and one way is wrong. So while Caroline and Holly introduce themselves, I've got a quick poll for you. So I'm just going to find the button. Right, there we go. So Holly, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. As Kathy said, I'm Holly Coxey. I run my VA business, Virtually Priceless, which I have now been running for 6.5 years. Set up in 2018, standard sort of story after leaving corporate world from being made redundant, having very young children and wanting some more flexibility. And I've grown that business from being me as a solo VA to a team of around 30. And we deal with mainly corporate clients. My background is banking and finance, so I've got a lot of clients that have kind of come from that world. And we provide primarily sort of executive level EA support, but we also do some operational support, so helping across marketing, finance, HR, recruitment, anything really in the back end of the business. We also do a bit of project management, and some slightly more techie stuff for some of our clients as well. We tend to have fairly decent sized contracts. We have quite a few team roles where we might have sort of 3, 4, 5 people working with a client, right through to some smaller roles where we have non-exec directors for 10 hours a month. I also run the Visionary VA Circle, which is a community helping people who want to grow their businesses and scale through building a team. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please come and find us on socials. Caroline, over to you.
What an intro. Hi, I'm Caroline. I run Upsource. We are going to be going into our 5th year this year. So we're a virtual assistant agency. We're almost a team of 30. My background, executive assistant, personal assistant, and I was actually an employed VA back in, so that'll be 2016 I started in that. So I'll be almost 10 years in the industry next year, which is exciting. But we work with a lot of SMEs, startups, scale-ups, providing everything from traditional executive assistant support or more operational business support, varied for some of our clients that are scaling and don't have those in-house roles. Say a little bit more about us. Almost a team of 30. And I also have a podcast called Bump to Business Owner. Like Holly, I set up my business to be more flexible, but I also experienced job loss twice within 18 months of motherhood. So I set up the podcast as well because I thought it was really interesting to just chat through stories of founders who are also mothers.
Amazing. So we've got a real mixture on the poll. Some are brand new to VAing altogether. Others do a mixture of associate work and their own work, and some just do associate work. So real mixture. So we've put our LinkedIn details in the chat. I've written a couple of books as well. One is about going from being a PA to being a VA, and the other one is about working with a VA, so for potential clients. So check those out. Firstly, for those who don't know, talk about what an associate role is. Apologies to those of you who have been doing it for eons and know, exactly what it is. But for those who are new to the VA world, we'll cover the basics. So I'll turn to Holly to cover this one. How would you define an associate role, Holly?
Yeah, so an associate role is someone who comes and works as a subcontractor in our businesses. So the associate would be working on a self-employed business basis. They'd have their own business, whether that's just as a sole trader or set up as their own limited company, but that they would have a contract with us to support one of our clients. It's something that you usually do working on a multitude of clients. So rather than it being a full-time position, and you could be working, you have your own direct clients and as well as an associate role or two, or you might decide to purely want to go down the associate route and work with some other lead VAs. Yeah, I don't know, what else would you add, Caroline?
Perfect, Caroline. I mean, there's some sort of basics we expect our associates to have in place. So Caroline, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, so I mean, everyone, if you're working as a freelancer, like Holly said, you do need to have things like your ICO in place and your insurance. They're kind of your bare minimum. Some lead VAs or agency owners may like you to have even up to your own domain name and email address. That's something I'm personally not fussed by. I think there's quite a few who probably had like websites in waiting for years because they found a lot of associate work and don't really need it. So they're not game changers for me. For me, what a real understanding, ICO and insurance you can get on day one of working as a freelancer. They're quite simple to get online. For me, it's more a true understanding that firstly, you need to get those things and you can be a freelancer and you're up for the freelance life and an understanding of what your capacity is and what hours you want to work. I feel that for me, make my heart sing that everyone kind of knows that, as well as an understanding of your skills. I think that is the best part as well, is that I don't want people applying to be an executive assistant, but they actually don't have that background and they think it might be easy admin kind of thing, rather than understanding what it takes to be an executive assistant kind of role and how they'll make that work within their time. So I think they're more the key things for me with what an associate is.
So let's go on to where we find our associates, because that's the other thing. People ask, well, where do you get these associate roles? I don't see them advertised, or the ones that are advertised aren't right for me. So I'll go first this time. For me, I have worked out when I looked at my associates, past and present, that I have met most of them through networking, whether that's online networking, in Facebook groups or on LinkedIn, or in face-to-face networking groups out around around the country at conferences or events. So for me, I actually think networking is pretty key. I have to be fairly desperate before I put out an associate application form these days. Caroline, application forms?
Yeah, I have an application form, and for me, it kind of, if I get inbound inquiries, leads, if I send them to, it's a big flag if they don't fill in the form, because we have a process like everything, and there's a recruitment process, and in order to get people through that process, unless there happens to be someone who's come in really warmly because I'm looking for a particular role, and we might be like, right, let's just get on a call. In general, it's a bit of a flag if people don't complete the form.
Holly, anything to add?
Yeah, I think the other place for me, I mean, I do a bit of both actually. I mean, definitely the networking aspect for sure. And as my business has got older and I've got more known in the industry, I now have a lot more people coming directly to me, which is great. But I do on occasion put out an application form still if we've got a very specific need for a particular type of role or hours that none of my current bench team can fulfill. But the other thing that's worked really well for me in my business is referrals from my other team members. Because if I've got someone who's come into my business from the corporate world and they tell me, oh, this person I used to work with is now leaving corporate and they're looking, to move into a VA role, I absolutely love it, because I know if they're recommending to me and they're on my team already, that I can trust their judgment. So I really love that. And I give my team a reward for doing that as well and bringing people in.
Yeah, same actually. I do like that. And I think particularly because I wrote a book for PAs about being a VA, I have quite a few people contact me that way when
Yeah.
they're wondering leaving corporate life. So I made a few connections that way as well.
Yeah.
So obviously different way into the business, but probably almost at any point there's going to be an application form and then a set process to kind of vet people, even if they have been referred to us, right? So let's look at that recruitment process. Obviously, every lead VA is going to be slightly different, and it depends on the job. You know, if you're looking for someone to do a couple of hours word formatting, you're not likely to go through a very long, complex process to get them on board. You're just going to crack on. If you're looking for the kind of roles we usually recruit for, it's more long term and it's client facing, so we have to tick a few more boxes. So Holly, what's your application process sort of start to end?
Yeah, so standard one is that they would fill in the application form that's on our website, which just collects, basic details, links to their profile, links to their social profiles, bit of background, asks for references, those checks that Caroline mentioned about, have they got their ICO, their insurance, whether they work on a Mac or a PC, that sort of basic information. I also ask a few questions just to give me a flavour of the type of person they are, how they might handle a situation. And the types of clients they like to work with, whether there's a particular personality type, and their favourite kind of 3 pieces of work, because I want people to have work that they enjoy, not me give them something completely opposite. If it looks as if they're a good fit for us, we would then ask them to complete a trial task for us. That's something I brought in a few years ago, which I find just helps to really check that people have got the skills and experience they say they have, that they can operate at the right speed, that their spelling and grammar, presentation skills are all sort of up to scratch. And if they do okay on that test and sort of hit our benchmark, then we'll have a quick chat with them. It kind of also depends if there's a live role or if they're just joining our sort of bench team. So at that point, we might just have one of the team have a quick chat with them, sort of 15, 20 minutes. We record that call so that we've got a record of, just so we can recall what they're like, and we've got that on our files. But if it's for a live role that we're recruiting for right now, if they're successful at that point, they would then meet separately with me and potentially move forward and meet with the client. It kind of depends a little bit on the situation with the role. How about you guys? What do you do?
Mine is relatively similar. And again, sometimes I'm meeting people and I will say, I've not got anything right now, but more than happy to meet because that can change.
Yeah.
And I've had people who've been on my bench for years, and whenever I've gone, have you got a project? They're like, oh no, sorry, I'm at capacity. And they'll email me and say, just got a bit of spare time. And I'm like, oh, I haven't got anything. 5 years was the longest I had something on the bench. So it does kind of work as a system. But yeah, there will be a point at which, so I typically don't get people to do, so I have like an hour's test, which is paid, just to, I find it helpful in how people work, how their brains work as much. There's not really a right or wrong answer. I've had loads of the team do the same things and they will all do it in a different way and they will all come up with different answers and none of them have been wrong. It's just seeing how your mind works, right? But I have had a couple where it's like your attention to detail is shocking, sorry.
Yeah, that's the big red flag. Yeah. And same on the application form. If you get people that can't even fill that in, I mean, yeah, that's a big red flag.
Yes, I had one woman who spelled her own email address wrong, so I couldn't even reject her. Because it's to this day one of my favourite, oh my God, this is how you don't fill in an application form stories. Caroline, how about you?
Yeah, similar to you, Kathy. I think I was going to say it's been 18 months, 2 years with a couple of team members, and now they've got 2 of the best relationships with their clients I've seen. So it's kind of like, don't be disheartened by the process, but sometimes it's the way it is, isn't it? Very similar to you guys. We're actually kind of playing around with video interviewing as well, just to start with. Because sometimes I like people from different backgrounds and things, and then it's really good to kind of see if they can handle that. Can they handle something else? And that it just kind of means we get a bit more of a different sort of VA on the team that wouldn't necessarily look amazing on paper, but that comes across really well and you can tell has that passion to start. And I'm still playing with that. I think to be open, processes change stuff, but we have a trial task as well. It depends how quickly we're moving. Sometimes if someone's got a really strong lead, we might move a bit quicker, and we do pay for our trial tasks. And
yeah, same. We're the same too.
It can be a bit of a challenge. I can't lie. I have been given that feedback.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
And
and it's intentional. I feel like you know, we have our process in the set. We don't expect perfection, but we expect great communication and giving things a good go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so thinking about those application forms, we've all seen some terrible ones. Mine with the baddest email address was one, but I have seen worse. Um, we've all seen them. So Caroline, what makes your heart sing when you read it on an application form? What are you looking for?
Real passion for what they do, and understanding they've done their research. They kind of, I think, yeah, the opposite of what would make my heart sing is if, you know, you can tell they want to work from home and don't know how, and hoping I can have that answer for them. And I think, you know, the answers are all there on the internet, and it's kind of just, if you want to come work with Upsource, apply with a great application that gives me your background, tells me who you are as a person, and that's, you know, that's a great application. You still, even if you're not right, you know, you want to be able to know you've put in your best application, and that's you. And that, in that case, is not the right fit. You might be the right fit for like Holly's agency kind of thing. But if you come across as yourself and really sell your experience well, go with that. Or, you know, even if you are worried you don't have the right experience, you know, say what you've done. Do talk about yourself, and that's a great application for me.
Holly, when you're obviously you have a couple of interviews in your process, what do you want to see demonstrated in those interviews? What are you looking for?
Again, like Caroline mentioned, the passion, the enthusiasm for the role. I want people who love what they do. I'm looking for them to be fully invested in my client's success and their business. And if that doesn't come across, that they're that conscientious, that they really do love what they're doing, they're just not going to be a great fit for us. I want to see the skills and experience coming through. I want them talking about how they're going to manage the client and the things that they're going to do as part of their role that go above and beyond managing an inbox or looking after a diary. You know, what's the kind of secret sauce around that, and how are they going to blow the client away? And I think those people you get on the call where that's just brimming out of them from the moment you start talking to them, you can just sense it immediately. I don't want people that haven't looked at my business and the type of clients that we work with. You know, that's, yeah, it's a big red flag. If you haven't done your research, we share everything everywhere. I'm all over the internet. You can see all our socials. It's very clear the type of clients we work with and the caliber of people we want in the team. Yeah, so that's hugely important.
Yeah, and mine is I'm going to start the list of red flags, and I'm sure we can all add to them. So I know what some of Caroline's are. For me, it's Zoom backgrounds, whether that is I've had a candidate turn up with her underwear hanging on washing in the background. I've had people turn up, and this is a weird one in an interview, but with like a branded background saying Joe Bloggs is virtual assistant. And it's like, well, you're going to be my subcontractor and you're representing my brand. So I don't want to see your brand because I don't want my client seeing your brand. You need to think about these things. So that's the kind of thing. Obviously being late, turning up with wet hair, not turning up at all because you got the day wrong. It's like, you're meant to be a diary manager, pull it together. Typos in application forms. And again, not doing the research. I had somebody apply a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of went, I remember you, but I remember why we weren't a good fit. And if I remember you and I speak to however many gazillions of people, and I know immediately that you weren't the right fit for us, surely when you were going, oh God, I've got no work, I ought to reach out to people again, you'd have either remembered the conversation or gone on the website and gone, oh yeah, corporates. I work with, I don't know, I think it was artists or, you know, neurodiverse creatives with a handbag business, or, you know, something really niche, but definitely nothing to do with management consultants, right? Yeah. And she just wasn't going to be a good fit, and her skills were sort of very admin-y, you know, and amazing for a creative who needs adminning, but not corporate level strategic diary management. Yeah. So it's knowing what you're applying for, and people applying wildly inappropriately for things that are clearly not the right fit is one of those things. Any others?
Definitely. And especially with things around the hours, you know, if I'm making it clear that I want someone Monday to Friday during office hours, you know, doing 10, 15 hours a week or something, and then they come on and they tell me that they can, you know, they can only do evenings, and can they fit this around a full-time job? It's like, no, you can't. Or can they work with the baby at home with them kind of thing? Like, I'm all for flexible working and working around a family, but there are limits. And I'm running a professional service for clients who want, a fully focused career VA. That's just not a cup of tea. There may be other businesses that fits, but it's not a good fit for us. So it really is just do your homework and don't come on and waste my time or yours.
And you see these Zoom names on the corner here, never show up with a client's name there.
Oh,
And because I like the team, I am very forward thinking about where EAs are going in the tech world. A lot of our clients, we're 60% Google Workspace. A lot of our clients have task management tools and things. This is something you should be understanding of things like Google Chromes and how you should be logged into things on different places. And for me, this is a red flag that you're not going to be a right fit if you haven't taken that time to know which login you should be using.
yeah, definitely. And I've had people come for an interview, which for me is like, if you're going for an interview, it's a fairly formal thing. You want to present yourself well, but they'll join sort of from their mobile phone, a shaky connection kind of in the car while they're clearly like on the school run or something. And it's just that if that's how you're presenting yourself to me, I'm immediately thinking, how are you going to deal with my clients? If that's the case and you're in that position, you shouldn't be joining by video, right? You want to be presenting yourself in a professional manner.
Yeah, and that I think is one of the real biggies for me is that trust is a massive issue. We're handing over our prized clients to people, right? And we trust that our associates are, for us lot anyway, our associates are going to be client facing. They're going to have conversations with clients. They're going to build those relationships. Not always the case. Some VA agencies have what I call a queen bee model, which is you have your VA, a bit like an accountancy model. So you've got your accountant sat there or your lead VA, and then everything comes to them, and then they feed bits of tasks back to Billy, Bob and Joanna back there, and then the tasks come back in, and then they spew it back to the client. That doesn't really work for our models, but some VA agencies still run like that when it's, a bit more old school, maybe it's transcription or, that kind of thing. But for us, we have to trust that these associates are going to be in front of our clients, and we have to trust if they're going to show up on a Zoom call with us with washing hanging in the background, or there was one lady who turned up for a call breastfeeding once, and I'm like, I don't have kids, I have dogs, but that was a bit weird, to be fair. Maybe if you've built a relationship with a client and they know it's going to happen down the line, but yeah, all a bit strange, frankly. I was, special. So what do we think makes a great associate that we can trust with our precious client? So I'm thinking about things like comms and stuff. So Holly, what makes you trust somebody?
I think them asking the right questions for sure. Certainly, I mean, are we talking about interview stage or kind of once they're working with us? I mean,
I think once they're on board and interview stage.
I want to feel like
they're
they're asking me the right questions, that they're just showing that they actually care and that they realize they're representing my business. And just because they do something one particular way doesn't necessarily mean we do. We have things like a team handbook. I want to know that they've read it and that they're on board with it and they're okay with everything. We have a very clear sort of IT policy and require people to have a health check around IT. That's something we're really strict about. They've got to be on board with that. I don't want people who are going to start questioning that and quibbling about it at the very first stage. That's a bit of that puts me off. But yeah, I think just also making sure that they're really conscientious for the client and they're feeding back to me what's going on in that client's world, that how the role's going, that they're communicative, that actually if I want to reach out to them I can get hold of them. That's usually a good start. If I ping them a message on Slack, I want them to reply and actually tell me how something's going, or if there's a challenge within the client's business, to make sure I know about it. I don't want to hear about something third hand from a client. I know things go wrong and occasionally people make mistakes. We're all human, and it can quite often happen with a new client, particularly that you make a silly mistake. I want to hear about that from them. And I've no issue with that. I just want to know what they're doing about it, that they've fessed up immediately, what they're doing to put it right, and that they're all about solving it and communicating with both me and the client to make sure that happens. So I think it's just that, it's just the honesty, being transparent, and them doing the things they say they're going to do. That's really that comes down to the bottom line, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, fessing up to mistakes, because we all make them. And I wrote a blog once, which I still sometimes share with new associates who are having what I call the new client horrors, which is when you get on a new client and everything you do suddenly goes horribly wrong and you can't put it back. And the stress levels go up, and the more stressed you get, the more wrong you get things, and you can't remember what happened on your introductory call. And all of a sudden you're like, I'm really sorry, I've got to quit. And I'll get that call going, yeah, I can't do this. I'm shit, I can't do this. And you go, you're a perfectly competent human being. What's wrong with you? And what I've found is quite often that associate has got something going on outside of work. They've either taken on 2 clients at the same time, and that's too much newness and their brains are exploding, or they're having their kitchen redone, or their kids being a dick at school and they're in the middle of all of that, or their husband's being a dick, or there's someone being a dick somewhere, basically. But actually, it's nothing to do with the client, and it's absolutely nothing to do with their ability. It's a confidence thing, and it only takes one thing and then another little thing, and it's only little stuff. But I mean, I certainly used to do this with a new client. I was always petrified working with a new client because it's new. It's like being a temp, right? So I have a lot of sympathy for that period of time. I had one client, I had the new client horrors for 9 months. 9 months. That's insanity. This woman was a perfectly normal human being, but I'd got a slipped disc. I was in excruciating pain. I was working from bed. I was having to have operations. My life was carnage. Dealing with that client was a lot. So I'm very sympathetic, but I need to know from you if something's gone wrong.
Definitely.
And I need to have that little mentoring conversation that says, do you think this might be what's going on, or really are you struggling? And if you are struggling, is it because they haven't given you all the information? Is it because they're being different? Getting into the nitty gritty.
Yeah,
but if
definitely.
I hear it from the client first, that's a massive red flag.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's understanding we're all human, we all make mistakes, and it's at the end of the day our business, our brand, and you have to be on board with that to work with us. And if you can't be, that's fine. Like go work somewhere else. But it is you are representing a brand, and it's about understanding that we're people as well, and we've got to make this work with the client, and each client's as important to us as it is you. And
absolutely. And it can have taken us years to get that client, right? It might be a relationship that we've nurtured for years. It might be someone who's a contact from our previous life in a corporate role. It's a big deal to win that client and get that contract. And it's incredibly hard to find client work sometimes, they don't always just come along. So it's a huge responsibility passing that role on to someone. You've got to feel confident in that person's abilities and that they're going to communicate with you regularly. And we're not scary, right? Like, it's just like, tell us what's going on, keep in touch, come to us for advice. We've done these roles, we've got these learnings, let us help. I think that's the thing. Don't soldier on struggling, voice your concerns, share with us what's going on, and we can probably help.
Yeah, I guess it's that understanding in the beginning is that we don't know you either. And so the communication's going to be there way more than someone we've worked with for 2 or 3 years. And that's natural in anything. It's that we've got to build that relationship. And so it can feel a lot at first when you're starting as an associate, but it does have to be that way in order for us to build that trust as well.
Yeah, got a couple of questions in the chat. So more from the other end of things, really. I'm interviewing someone heavily now. Is someone saying that they really need the money a red flag? She's really experienced as a VA and has great personality. I think it's a bit odd.
It's a red flag if they're just saying, we do get people that say, oh, hey, I'm looking for VA work, I really need the money. That on its own would be a red flag, absolutely. But if it's someone that's proven themselves, that's why you need a strong interview process, right? Because you need to find out the reasons that someone's applying, whether they fit your business, and then you need to test their skills and experience. So I think we all need money, right? We've all got to pay a mortgage and keep a roof over our head. So absolutely you need the money, but and ask people what they're looking for. Is this just a short term? Are you looking to fill a gap while you sort your own finances? Are you looking for your own direct work, or are you committing to this role for 6 months to a year because that's what I need for my longer term contract? So I don't think you can really answer that as a standalone question. It really depends on that bigger picture and what dialogue you've had with that person already.
Yeah, and I think another question from Debbie as well about interviewee came across as a perfect fit, personality-wise, experience-wise, but I gave her personality and cognitive tests to take, and she scored very average. Well, psychometric tests are naturally pretty subjective, I would say. I think I don't do them. I've done them before as part of businesses, and I've worked with a lot of people that give them, and pretty much everyone that gives them goes, these are really subjective, and they are potentially quite what's the word? If you're not kind of in the normal bracket for whatever reason that these tests were created on, you know, sort of white, middle intelligence, neuro normal, then you're possibly not going to hit what you want. But I mean, I wouldn't rely on those tests for anything. I would be looking at their experience, be looking at how they came across in an interview, be looking at their written standards if you're going to have them writing to clients. There's lots of things I would be testing against that are practical. Now, if you need them to fit into a team and that's part of your process and having them in a team, then
yeah, and they've got to fit the client. If you've got a particularly out there client or someone that's got a particular character trait that's going to be really hard to fit, fair enough, but that's your role as the lead VA. You're the matchmaker, right? So you've got to be able to assess the client's personality and get sort of work on their feedback of what they're looking for, and then also marry that up against, you know, the associate and how they come across the interview and what you get from your interview, you know, process.
Yeah. I'm going to move on because it's sort of the wrong webinar to be talking. We did the other webinar about how to get associates and work with associates last year.
Yeah.
This is more how to be an associate. So I'm going to put a line under that. Otherwise, we'll be repeating ourselves from December.
Yeah.
And my mind's already messy enough.
Yeah. Miranda's asked if it's the norm for the client to interview the associate. So do you have your clients doing that, Kathy?
It depends. It depends on the client. Some clients want to meet everybody. Other clients trust us to put the right resource in, and we just literally lob them in and get them an email address. If it's a new client, I like them to, and I sometimes, in an ideal world, I would pick the person I think is the best fit, and I would get them to meet one person. If I can't call it between 2 or 3, I'll suggest they meet 2 or 3. Because it's a chemistry thing at that point. I've already assessed that who I'm putting in has got the right background, they've got the right experience, and I think they're going to be a good fit. But you can never tell. You know, I've got one client in particular who I've had several associates with, and he's just a very, very particular kind of person who likes a very particular kind of person. And some people work and some people don't. And he's the only one where I'd say, I still find it tricky to match the right person. Everybody else, I'm like, I know, you know, and one of my clients always meets everybody, and she said, yeah, but you never sent me anyone I've said no to. And I'm like, no, it's fine. If you want to meet them, you know, it's your choice. So I think it depends. It very much depends.
Often I do, and I try and say it's not an interview, but sometimes I've got no control over
chemistry call,
so
I call it. Yeah.
And it is, I do think personality is important, not just for the client, for the associate as well. And I think, you know, sometimes you can be like, this is not who I thought it was, you know, especially if there's a different person I've been dealing with in sales versus the actual person, which can happen. So I often do that process, but try to make it clear on both sides it's not an interview, because I've done that.
Yeah, I mean, I describe it as we need to make sure the chemistry is right. You know, this is who I think is a great fit, but please flag if not, you know, just have a chat. That's kind of, and it's 15 minutes. It's not any longer than that for me. So as well as the client-facing elements of the associate role, there are some things that go on in the background for all of us. So Holly, you've already said, like replying to Slack messages. So for me, being administratively competent when you're asked for things like new insurance documents or tech details for security things is really important. And actually, sometimes I find associates can be so client focused that they forget that we are also clients. And actually, if we ask for stuff, we need it. We're not doing it for, you know, we're not doing it because we're bored. So what goes on behind the scenes where associates can really show their excellence? What do we expect that's perhaps outside of that client remit? Caroline, what makes a great team player for you?
Team member, someone, yeah, we've got Slack too. So someone who really gets involved with the community. Once they're added, without us having to introduce them, they'll just pop up and they've got their beautiful photo on there, their phone number on their profile, and saying, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm looking forward to working with you all." There's all these little things in the background that we do for onboarding. Like for us, it's standard. Everyone has their phone number on Slack, because sometimes I just need to call them, and that's the quickest place for me to find their number. And all those little details, if they've done all of them, I'm like, they're going to be a great team member. And it is those little details, and it's forgetting that we are a client, and we've experienced, you know, we've all between us got 30+ team members and worked with far more than that during our times, that we've put in these details for reasons. That it's not just there to catch people out. They're there, firstly, we need them. Secondly, it really shows who's going to be an excellent team member.
Yeah, and I appreciate there are some of my team are very much lone wolves, and they don't want to have a chat and put gifs in Slack or do any of that stuff or turn up to a virtual Christmas party. And I'm like, I'm fine with that, as long as they do the bare bones of answering emails and invoicing on time. So people quite often think that invoicing is one of those things that, well, it sort of doesn't matter when I send it in. I'll send it in when it's convenient for me. And it's like, that's fine, but don't expect me to pay it as a one-off when I'm paying 30 invoices on a set date because everybody else sent theirs in and it got processed. And then you send yours in 4 days later, it's missed the bookkeeper because she's off on Fridays, and then wonder why you don't get paid on the Tuesday when I'm doing everybody else's. So it's that kind of thing. It's an administrative competence. We're doing an administrative job.
Yeah.
One of my pet hates is going to cover somebody's inbox and it looks like someone's vomited in it. I'm like, for the love of God, how can you work in
a tidy inbox is a big one.
tidy
Yeah.
inbox?
Like tidy house, tidy mind, tidy inbox.
Tidy.
Happy Holly.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other one around the admin point for me is timesheets. So you mentioned about invoicing, Kathy, but we track time live. Our clients have a live link. They can see at any point how much time we've used. You can't be adding time 3 days, 2 weeks, whatever later. I actually had this with someone a couple of weeks ago around the Christmas period. We very clearly set the deadlines. I was going on holiday. It's like, get your invoices here. We'll lock the timesheets on this date. This is when we're invoicing clients. And we invoice the clients, and then a day later we get her invoice and, oh, I forgot to add some time from 2 weeks ago before Christmas. The portal's locked, I can't add it on. And it's like, no, you can't. And we've now invoiced that client. I'm sorry, but that's your loss. You lost that time, because I am not going back to the client to say we haven't added time from Christmas Eve because you haven't done it. So I'm sorry, but yeah, you've lost it. And I do have to be that strict because I've got that relationship with that client. You know, we can't be doing that to them. It's one of the fundamental things of doing your role. If you want to get paid, you have to log your time and submit an invoice. And
Well, and you
we'll hold
log
up our ends. I'll pay that within 2 or 3 days, you know, like absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I find it happens with associates. And I used to, when I started, had direct clients and I was an associate for 2 different VAs, and each of those VAs had different timesheets. And I like to know from an overall perspective what my billing was. So you just double time it, right? You go into Toggle and you go into Minute Doc and you go into Paymo or whatever the other one was, and you just record it in 2 places. But I've had a similar issue. I'm pretty sure that's why you now lock your timesheets after what happened to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But when we're talking to clients, one of the things that we sell is we record time live. It's really accurate. Therefore, you cannot go back to a client afterwards and go, oh, yeah, sorry, they forgot to set the timer at Christmas Eve, because then that's a whole wormhole of, oh, did they always forget to set the timer? Are they making this shit up? What? No.
Yeah.
And it's in my contract, you record live.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate we do have to review these things, so never take it personally. You know, a majority of people will live track, but you know, that is a flag if people don't. And sometimes we have to do a picture overview and, you know, say this isn't on, because like I said, it's all, then our clients don't trust us and then we don't have the work. It all boils down to that. It's not because it's coming from a place of mistrust.
And it just makes us look and I don't know about, I'm sure you guys are the same. I can tell when a time is being recorded live versus being made up after the fact.
Yeah.
You can see it. You know what a timesheet for that particular client should look like if you're doing it live versus somebody going, well, I did a bit there and a bit there and a bit there, let's call it half an hour. You can tell. So, you know, do what you say you're going to do, really. Not replying to emails about prospective work is a big one for me. I can't tell you how many people I email and go, look, I've got this gig, can we talk about it? Kind of urgent. 3 days later, oh yeah, lovely. Good. Gone. Bye. Moment's passed. Why are you not reading your email for 3 days? Oh, I was on holiday with the kids. Great. Out of office? Magical thing. It was invented in like the 90s. Not a difficult concept. So yeah, I mean, there's just some administrative competence that needs to be reflected for the lead VA as well as the client. Because if we see that kind of slacking off, but if we don't see that as a service level for us, it just makes us worry what on earth you're doing with the client.
Yeah, it's just that level of professionalism, isn't it? And the attention to detail, and it matters. It really matters.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked back at the beginning about what an associate job is. What is an associate job not to you guys?
It's not an employed role. You're not there to direct someone in everything they do. I think you need a certain amount of initiative, and you need the ability to prioritize, to make sure you're bringing the right things forward to us. You know, if I've got new associates on my team, people who've just left the corporate world and are making that transition and setting up on their own, we happily, you know, try to support them through, you know, pointing them in the right direction of this is where you go, this is who you should maybe get insurance with, here are some communities that are useful. But you are the business owner, you are there running your own business, and it is your responsibility to look at, you know, how you do your accounts, how you invoice us, whether you're actually, you know, paying each month your taxes and filing your tax returns, all those sort of things. So that is not our responsibility. Yeah, and it's important that you want to do that right and you're asking the right questions. And yeah.
Caroline, anything to add to that?
I'd say it's not an easy training role. You should already know what you're doing, and unless for some reason, you know, we have brought someone on in that, but as standard, they are a role and our clients have expectations to withhold. And I have seen it before where people have said, oh, I'm not even getting associate roles. And it's like, we aren't necessarily easier than some sort, depending what sort of clients you're working with. It's kind of, you know, well, go back to the application process and things like that. So, but, you know, we know it is very fulfilling and a community and, you know, and you can definitely get the right clients for you if you are the right fit for the agencies, but it's not an easy training role. We are very happy with our associates. Like I said, Holly said, you've got your own businesses. If you want to grow a team like we've got, we're so supportive of that, but please don't do it in the right way, not in the way of like, oh, I'm just going to do this for a bit kind of way. We understand everyone, you know, turnover is good in a healthy way, but like I said, there's a minimum commitment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm happy to see any of my team succeed. And I have in the past done a mentoring session with one of them and told her she needed to fire me because her business was at a point where she shouldn't be doing associate work. And, you know, the hours were killing her and it was too much. And I think that put me under pressure because I had to find somebody else. But, you know, and she didn't do it straight away. She did give it a couple of months. I'm like, aha, and she's there. Great. Well done. Congratulations. Good. And I think we're all really happy. It's a very collaborative industry, right? I mean, technically, the three of us are all competitors. You know, we could all easily be scrapping over the same clients and bitching about each other, but who's got the time? But actually, we are genuinely happy to see other people succeed. I think for me, I'm more than happy to see, well, Holly, you were on my team.
Absolutely.
You know, more than happy to see people succeed and grow and, you know, and even help them on that journey. But I think there's also there's a bit of upfront, and I ask the questions like, well, you know, where are you in your VA journey? And one of the things that will really make me twitch is someone who's just left a full-time job and is actually still looking for a full-time job, and they think they can just do a bit of VAing, you know, between times. That will make my
it's not a part-time hobby job. That's the other kind of thing. Oh,
yeah.
can I just do this a bit on the side? Like, and maybe that is the case with some roles, depending on the type of work you're doing, but certainly not the kind of businesses that we and a lot of other people are operating.
Yeah,
Yeah, and a bit of admin in the evenings. Often if you're working with an agency like ours, the rates we're charging our clients, they are not a bit of admin in the evening.
No.
Yeah.
And
No.
so sometimes I have to be the hard one to be like, this isn't the right fit for you because we need this. You need to be there in the day to be proactive, to do all those things for the client.
But also, I think some people come into associate work thinking it's with unrealistic expectations about their skills and experience, right? So just as with employed admin and PAs and EAs, you've got a scale from sort of school leaver right up to city EA earning 100k. You've got the same in the VA world. And there's no point if your last employed experience and your last 6 months as a VA was doing some admin for the local council and, you know, supporting a couple of gardeners and a hairdresser, you're not doing the same kind of work as someone who is an executive who's got experience at, you know, C-suite level in the city. It's a different role. So I think associates need to be realistic, and I think sometimes they are in the habit of thinking, well, it's an associate role when it's admin, so I can do admin. It's like, yeah, but there's admin and there's admin. And just as you wouldn't apply for a full-time job that was 70 grand a year when your last job was paying 25, you've got to be realistic in the kind of jobs you're applying for and know what your skill set is. And there are absolutely associate roles out there which utilize people who are amazing organizers, people who are brilliant at doing social media, people who are great at funnels and all that kind of stuff. You just need to find where that is, right? So that would be my one. And we should probably, on that note, talk about associate rates as a whole. Who sets them? What are they like? Caroline, do you tend to set the rate, or do you have people apply and tell you their rate? How do you tend to work it?
We set the rate, and even if it's a niche skill or something, yeah, sometimes people come and tell us their rate, and we'll tell them, like, fortunately, you know, we're starting at this rate. We've been in business 5 years now, and you know, something we'd like to work on that sliding scale model, but we do set the rate, and that's the rate for everyone. So unfortunately, we don't have room for negotiation on that side unless there's a specific niche, you know, some like language skills or something that comes into play there, or out of office or in person sometimes, which we do. So those have different rates as well.
Yeah, Holly?
So yeah, I mean, yeah, a little bit like Caroline, we do set the rate, but I ask on the application form what people's associate rate is, because I want to know that we're, you know, in the right ballpark. There is occasionally a little bit of wiggle room for that if someone has got incredible experience or skills they're bringing along, particularly if it's for a more technical role where we need them to have knowledge of a particular platform, or they're going to be doing some project work for a client. But you know, we all know those industry rates, and we all know that we pay reasonably well, and we do try to stay kind of above that, and we will put people's rate up if they're doing a great job and if they've been with us a certain length of time as well.
Yeah, and I'm a bit of a mixture. So again, I ask people when they apply what their associate rate is. Very occasionally I will go back and go, either, are you sure? As in, they don't know what an associate rate is, and that is their direct to client rate, and they've got confused in their brain because they say, well, my rate's £35 an hour, and I go, it might be to clients. That's not an associate rate. It might, I think it depends on the client. For me, it depends on the client, it depends on the person. I always like to ask people, interestingly, a red flag for me would be someone whose associate rate is too low.
Yeah, and I've definitely had that. We have a sort of minimum starting rate, and if someone for me is way under that and I can see they've got amazing experience, they're pleasantly surprised when I then say, no, we're going to put you on this, and then because they're not, you know, unfortunately it's certainly a bit of a female character trait. We're not necessarily always very good at selling ourselves, and for people that are lacking in the confidence and don't have the experience of doing it, they massively undersell themselves. So I will also help bring people up to speed on that and put their rate up accordingly if I think they're worth it. Yeah,
exactly. And like you say, sometimes there are very technical projects, and it also depends on the client rate, right? So, you know, I've got some really long-standing clients who are, because of the sheer volume of hours, not on a massive high hourly rate, which limits who I can put on that if people come in on a very high hourly rate, because the existing team have been there years and that's incrementally gone up, and the client rate isn't incrementally going up as frequently, right? Because it's a much more challenging conversation to have, and you're not doing it every year where you perhaps are doing associates every year. So there's a bit of a balancing act. You know, if it's a new client, they're on new rates, and that's great. Gives you a bit more room to play with. So it sort of depends on the client, depends on the associate. Depends, I think, is, you know, I know what my starting rate is, but I have been known to wiggle room it if there's somebody that I really want. And like you, Holly, if somebody comes in under that, I will go, yeah, no, we don't pay them. That's not acceptable. No, try harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the other thing around the rates and things is to say that, you know, back to that point about having people on our team who we trust and are honest, and you build a good relationship. Like, we want to look after people, right? I want to do right by my team members, you know, and we all want to treat people fairly, and we all like to, you know, do little gifts, or we might want to give out awards, or we might want to, you know, yeah, there's lots of little things you can do around that. We might want to pay for some training, or just, you know, help them kind of along the way. But I think that's the thing. If you get into a community and you build a relationship with people, you know, we want to keep them as part of our team, right? We don't want people going and looking for work elsewhere. I want to pay people as well as I can within the limits of that particular role. We're not the sort of people that are in it just to make every penny we can out of every associate. That's not the case. We're running a business. We have to make a margin. There's a huge amount of work that goes into winning clients and just running the business. And I think it's important people are aware of that, because quite often people are pointing out, oh, you know, these Lead VAs, they're making so much money in these 10 members. And we're really not, you know, we're really not. It doesn't work like that. It's incredibly expensive running a bigger business, and to say the client recruitment, the effort that goes into sales and marketing, and how long it can take to nurture those relationships, it feels like it barely covers the cost sometimes.
Margins are a lot lower than other industries, and you know, the large agencies are not the ones on this call who are really doing low rates for their team members. And I think that's it as well. You know, it's not just about the rate being an associate, and, you know, think about what you can learn from your Lead VA, from the team. And like we said, we all do things to keep our teams happy, and to have things that are bonuses and pluses for working with us and being part of the community, as well as shouting about them. I've had an associate win several awards the past year that I nominated her for. So there's things like that that can help give you a lift and a boost.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll also, you know, I'll pay team members, as well as the referral fee for bringing in other team members. I'll pay referral fees to my team if they pass clients over to me that then don't have capacity to take on. So there are lots of opportunities to help grow our businesses. And we just, if we feel we've got people who are really embedded and committed to our team, it can be a really great environment for them and for us, you know, and we like finding people that don't want to leave us because they so enjoy being part of our community.
Yeah, totally. So we haven't got any questions in the chat, but to wrap up, why don't we each do one super tip on either getting or keeping an associate gig? So for me, my top tip would be to meet as many people as you can in the industry and be really clear about what you're offering. So I know that I have the brain of a small drunk llama, right? I can't remember anything, but I will remember that a lady called Marion does medical VA stuff, and that will stick in my mind. And I know that somebody over there is great at working with people who are neurodivergent. Now, if you have got a thing to hook yourself on, that's great, because it makes you memorable. You know, I know somebody who's amazing at doing board minutes. So try and not, I hate the word niche, but there's definitely something about being memorable and getting out there and getting your name known, because other people will start to refer you for stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the word medical and I've just gone, Marion. And I don't know if she even does it anymore. I think she's retired. She's probably 100. I don't know. I just keep referring her because it's stuck in my little brain, my little llama brain. So get out there, meet people and get known. That'd be my top tip.
Definitely. And we will also refer people amongst ourselves, right? Yeah, you and I have done it quite often, Kathy. You know, Kathy, I've got this role, I can't find anyone. You know, do you know anyone that would be a great fit? So it's not just about being, you know, meeting that person and networking with them. There is a wider VA community, and we will share that kind of information. So if you've made a great impression with one of us, there's a very good chance we could recommend you to someone else. So yeah, it's so important to do that networking piece.
Yeah, and just be aware that every interaction you have with fellow VAs is remembered, right? You know.
Yeah, and even like online, like there's a woman who
Oh,
started liking my post again recently. I said I'd spoken to her before, and I said to my friend, "Oh, is she looking for work, by the way? Because I've seen her be active." She was like, "Yeah, no, they've made loads of redundancies at a company." And like, but that is like, I remember her. Oh, noted in the bank then now
yeah.
that she's redundancy, and she's just been like suddenly
Yeah.
appearing more, keeping an eye on me and what we're doing. And I think don't be afraid to do that. You know,
Yeah, I love
might
that.
not be able to
That's
get
brilliant.
out to
Yeah.
the real person networking, but do and connect with us in a way that's not like I need work, but
Yeah.
Well,
just
and I
showing
think
an
the other thing
interest.
is, it's really easy to get a reputation in Facebook groups as someone who whinges that they can't find any work. And at some point, everyone goes, well, why can't they find any work? Are they crap?
Yeah.
Are they difficult to work with? And there's certainly, I'm going back donkey's years, and I don't think she's around anymore, but there's certainly somebody, and every time I saw her post, I just go, oh God, who's hurt her today? And it was a bit like, you're in those groups, they're a professional group. Yes, there's advice and support and all the rest of it. But people will remember you if you go in there going, oh, woe is me, no one loves me, I can't get any work. People will remember that if you do it often enough. I mean, if you do it once, it's just like, that's really crap. I'm really sorry you're having a bad time. You know, have some genuine sympathy. If you do it twice a week, people are going to start thinking, what the hell's wrong with this woman that she can't get any work? So be cautious because you don't know who is in those groups. We're in there, right? We're watching. Are we going to take somebody on who's, you know, constantly striving to make any money? Maybe, maybe not. But you also don't know what external people are in there. Who get, and we've had people try to join webinars who are suppliers, right? Because they're nosy and they want to know what, oh God, they're probably watching. They're but you know, they want to know who's who and what goes on in the VA industry and what happens. And those kind of people can very easily get into Facebook groups that aren't particularly well moderated. And again, they might be a potential client down the line. Hang on a minute, wasn't she the one who was moaning about her client and saying how awful she was? So just be a bit cautious in those groups because you know people remember stuff.
And I think it's not even just around groups. I think just be careful on social media in general. You know, it's one of the things I do if I'm looking at someone who's applied for a role. I go and check out their social media. I want to see the way they're presenting themselves. I don't want them having a political rant, or I don't want them moaning about a client, or you know, you think about your brand and your reputation, because yours has got to be good enough to represent you and sell yourself to me, but I've also got to not be concerned of how you're going to look for my client, right? Because once my client knows you and they've got your name, they can see you on LinkedIn, they might, see your stuff out there. Just think in everything you're doing, how you're showing yourself to the world, not just us, but to your potential clients, our potential clients, and the wider community.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Right. Well, anyone got any more questions? Anything before we wrap it up?
No, I did just put a reminder
well
on if
done.
anyone's got anything, so nothing at the
Oh, there
moment.
we go. Oh, pleasure, Pauline. Well, I hope that was helpful. We just kind of decided it might be useful for people because there's so many more people coming into the industry. And I was really lucky as an associate. I worked with some lead VAs who were perfectly happy to answer all my stupid questions, but that's not always the case. And
Yeah, I worked for the best lead VA. I was on Kathy's team.
yeah, so it's so we just thought it might be helpful for people, so hopefully it was. If you do have any questions, reach out to us. You've got all our details on LinkedIn there, so
Definitely. And even if you're in the position of still being in a corporate role, we also love having those conversations. If it's something you're thinking about doing, becoming a VA in the next 6 months, a year, whatever, come and ask the questions. If you're someone that you think would be a good fit for our team, we're always happy to chat. And we love having people that we've got on our radar, at the back of our mind, ready to take the leap at some point.
Yeah. And the other webinar, Holly, you shared a YouTube video, didn't you? I
Yeah.
don't know if everyone's seen it in the chat.
Yeah.
So that was more aimed at people who are hiring associates and what growing a business. Was it hiring associates, growing a business? I mean, it blended a bit, didn't it? But that was more the other side of it, how we go about hiring associates. So if you're a lead VA and you're bringing people on, that one might be more helpful for you as you grow your business. And we haven't got another one planned, but who knows when we have a little brain.
We like getting together and hanging out. So yeah, we'll think of a fun topic. And if you guys have got anything in particular you would love us to chat about, then do ping us a note and let one of us know.
Yeah, always happy to chat. Lovely to see
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye.